Hello crafty friends, have you ever rummaged through your recycling bin to find things to use in your arts and crafts? Well, that's what I did today. I pulled out 4 bits of cardboard because I wanted to make a faux embossing folder using scrap cardboard and some hexagon dies. And I've got an Oreo ice cream box, a limescale prevention tablets box, some Amazon packaging and a bit of grey board from the back of a paper pad that I used up. The first thing I did was take a piece of each of the cardboards and run them through my die cutting machine with the largest hexagon die. I then ran these through my Cuttlebug die cutting machine with some smooth white card using the embossing sandwich to see which of these would give me the nicest impression. To emboss with the Cuttlebug, you use the thick plate, a cutting plate, the rubber mat, then the card you're trying to emboss, then the thing you're trying to emboss with, and another cutting plate. If you've got a different machine, then the manual should tell you what to use for your embossing sandwich. So all of the bits of cardboard left a really nice impression in my cardstock. I decided to go with, for today's project, the grey board, because it left the deepest impression. I wanted something quite pronounced. Once I'd made my decision, I went ahead and cut lots of different sized hexagons out of the grey board. And then I took a scrap of smooth white card about the size of a card blank and arranged my hexagons on it in a cascade from the top right to the bottom left. And once I was happy with their arrangement, I used high-tack white glue to glue them in place on an identical piece of white card. And I chose glue over tape because when running this through my die cutting machine, I'm applying lots of pressure. And there's a risk with tape adhesive that things could shift and move around when pressure is placed upon them. It doesn't bond things together like glue does. So I decided on my high-tack white glue and used my T-square ruler and tweezers to get my hexagons lined up nice and straight in that horizontal plane on my scrap of card. Obviously I don't want to run my DIY embossing folder through my die cutting machine while the glue was still wet, so I set that aside to dry. And I set about creating some shimmery backgrounds using pigment powders. I've got crushed velvet and peacock indigo blue luscious powders. I put some water on my mat and then added some luscious powders to the water. I then used my smoosher to pick up some purple and I smooshed that onto some smooth white card, going again from the bottom left to the top right. I then set that aside to dry and did the same thing on another piece of smooth white card, but using my bubble wrap smoosher. If you want to know how to make a smoosher, there is a whole playlist about smooshers and cards made using smooshers linked below. On my third piece of cardstock, I used my mini smoosher to add the purple pigment powder. And on my fourth and final piece of cardstock, I did a little experiment. I took a blending brush and I put it inside a sandwich bag. And then I used it to pick up my purple paint and smoosh it on. I just thought, I wonder if there is another tool that I can use for smooshing. And I actually really like the effect I got with this. It's quite akin to the normal smoosher, but you can have even more control. So once my first lot of smooshing was dry, I then used the same smooshers to smoosh on some teal over the purple. And then I gave all 4 panels a really good dry with my hairdryer, because I wanted to die cut from them next, and I used a stitched rectangle die to cut my panels down a little bit and to give them a nice stitched edging. And then I ran them through my Cuttlebug in the embossing sandwich with my faux embossing folder. So I wanted that diagonal of hexagons to push up into the back of my backgrounds so that they looked raised on the front, and so they ran along that diagonal with the paint. And all I did was lay the background down onto my foam embossing folder where I wanted it, and then held it in place with a little bit of washi tape just to stop it shifting around. Off camera, I used some tape runner to stick my panels to some card fronts, and then I pulled out my rule of thirds acetate grid and placed it on my cards and used it to help me place some gold glitter hexagons that I cut out. I put one on each intersection of the rule of thirds grid. I used white glue to stick them down, my T-square ruler to get them straight, and then I added a smaller stitch hexagon this time to go with the stitching on the big panel. And I added that to the gold glitter hexagon to bring some of the white to the foreground and so that gold glitter wasn't too in your face. If you want to know how to make a rule of thirds acetate grid, there is a video linked below, so do check that out. I wanted to add another embellishment on top of my white hexagon, and I decided on a heart. I thought it would look nice surrounded by a hexagon. So I took another piece of smooth white card and used some of the peacock pigment powder to paint my paper. I dried this with my hairdryer and then stuck some 1mm deep foam tape on the back and used a little heart die to cut out some little hearts. I took the release paper off the back of the foam tape and then stuck the hearts in the middle of my hexagons. And for my sentiments, I dipped into my sentiments stash and pulled out 4 different Thinking of You die cuts. These are, I believe, Julie Hickey foilables. I haven't foiled them, I'm just using them as they come. Black ink on white cardstock. I did show these cards to my daughter and said, do you think they need anyone else? And she said gold drops. So I pulled out my gold glitter drops. These are Gold Coast from Nouveau drops. They dry clear, but they have some gold glitter inside them. And I added them in that diagonal again. So what do you think? Will you be using cardboard from your recycling bin to make some faux embossing folders? Will you be trying the blending brush inside a sandwich bag smoosher? Do let me know in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I hope it's given you a whole bunch of ideas of things you can do in your own card making. If it has, please consider leaving a thumbs up. And if you want to see more from me, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And I'll see you back here very soon for another video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.